Hi guys, and welcome to today's video where I'll be going through the options of what you can do with your reptile whilst you're on holiday, or as you may call it, vacation. So the first option, and not one that I'd necessarily recommend, is travelling with your gecko. Now I get a lot of messages asking if people can do this, if they're going away on a road trip. However, the movement of the car, the temperature fluctuations in the car, the lack of control over temperature and humidity can cause some issues. So firstly, as we all know, the temperature fluctuations can not only be dangerous for our furry friends, but also our reptiles. They can overheat or they can get too cold. This, as well as the constant disruption of a driving car, can all cause stress to your reptile, which in turn will probably cause them to lose their appetite once you get to your holiday destination. The first few days of your vacation, you'll be worrying about the fact that your reptile isn't eating, and then when they finally settle down, by that time it's probably time to leave. So I would only really suggest this if none of the following options are feasible. This first alternative option is probably the ideal situation really. So if there's going to be someone in your house whilst you're away, maybe a friend or a family member who lives with you, you could plan ahead and see if they'll take care of your reptiles. Now ideally in the few weeks or so before your holiday, you should make sure they know how to care for your gecko. So how to dust their food, how to feed them, how much food they need, how to feed the feeder insects, changing the water, even spraying down the tank if your gecko requires it. You can also type them up a list of tips or rules about caring for the gecko, as well as their feeding and supplementing schedule. And if they get stuck, you can always direct them to a certain YouTube channel. Some people really don't like the thought of holding feeder insects or even interacting with reptiles, so it's good to make sure that they're completely comfortable with this beforehand. The last thing you want is them calling you up saying they've accidentally released like a few hundred crickets in your bedroom and the cat's got the gecko. Alternatively, if you don't have anyone at home or you don't really want people coming in and out of your house to check on your reptile, you can always take the reptile to them. Ideally, they would be fairly local. I did this with Gizmo when she was a baby, because obviously babies need to be fed and checked on daily so they cannot be left. Once again, make sure your friend or family member is fully aware of how to care for your reptile. And also, if they've never held geckos before, tell them not to handle yours. Social interaction isn't necessary if you're just away for a week or two. The gecko will be totally fine. And far too many times I've had people leaving their geckos with someone who has taken the gecko out, mishandled it, and now the gecko is a nervous wreck. The only downside to this generally is it means you have to take your gecko's tank and their live food and everything else to your friend or family member's house and also use their electricity. However, if you'd prefer someone with experience to care for your gecko, then you could put them in reptile boarding. Some people do this as a little side job, some reptile shops offer this. However, if I were you, I'd only do this if you really knew the people and the shop well and you could trust that they'd take good care of your pet. Because let's face it, sadly, you don't have to be an animal expert to work in a general pet or reptile shop, and some places do have bad reputations, so do plenty of research beforehand. A much simpler option is to just leave the gecko at home. Now, this only really works if you're popping away for a day, a weekend, or a long weekend and the gecko is an adult. The reason being is because adult leopard geckos don't need to be fed daily. So all you really need to do is give them a good meal before you leave, make sure there's no leftover feeder insects in their tank, they have plenty of fresh water, and their lighting and or heating is controlled by timers or the correct thermostats. Crested geckos and other reptiles that require daily tank sprayings may need to be bought a rain machine or a dripper. A dripper isn't really ideal as it won't raise the humidity, but the gecko will at least have a drink. You can always leave a very shallow dish of water, but once again, this isn't really ideal. I haven't thought this through so much about like my crested gecko and my chihuahua, but if I were to go away for like a weekend, this is how I'd leave my adult leopard geckos. So I hope this has kind of cleared things up for you guys. I know this question has been asked to me so many times over the years. If you have any tips, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. The sad thing is I haven't been on holiday or even a weekend away for about 5 years, so I really haven't been able to put these in practice for a very long time. But regardless, I hope this helps. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and goodbye.